So I was gonna.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I was gonna say John 3:16.
Right,
You know?
right,
yeah,
Yeah. What does it say?
What's that? Let me
for
check my
God,
tattoo real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime I hear 316, I just start thinking of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know?
That's
I hear
it.
glass breaking and
Yo.
beers getting chugged. You know?
Yeah. All right, and we're live. We're live, cuzzo.
All right, we are back with the next episode for you guys at the Electives Podcast. Today we have a guest by the name of Zach Joaquin. Is that
Yes,
how you pronounce
sir, that's
it?
how you do it.
Okay, all right,
Come
just
on.
making sure, man.
I didn't even know you were Hispanic, man.
I didn't know either until you just said that.
Oh man, that's funny.
Before we start off with the first question, I just want to touch bases real quick on how we know you,
Yeah.
how this came to be. From my point of view, it's kind of funny. I mean, you work at Calvary Church,
Yep.
right? You're the head of the sports
ministry, yeah.
sports ministry. So we've played in that league. My cousin and I, we've played in that league for 3 seasons now, or 4.
I want to say it's 3 because I think after COVID, maybe was
I
the
want to
first
say
one?
3. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
maybe
I can
3 or
remember.
4.
But I don't think you were there the first.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I don't know when I came in, but I think we had one league before after COVID, and then I came in was one of that. But yeah.
Got you. Okay, and then I do remember that the guy that was running it before, he had it set up. He had the league set up in a good way, but it's not as good as it's running now.
Okay.
So everything you've been doing,
I guess that's
just
good.
want to give you credit, man.
All right.
It's flowing a little better, flowing a little smoother. Every now and then you got to kick somebody out.
Yeah.
You know, or not kick them out, but
Yeah.
deal with it. You know, it's sports, it gets competitive.
Yep.
But that was where I first, saw you, ran into you, and then ironically, you come up to the. Did you call in? Or did you,
Yeah. I called and I was like, "Hey, I need a haircut." I'm like, "You guys got an opening?" And I don't know who picked up the phone, but they're like, "Hey, has anybody got an opening?" And like, "All right, we got you coming." And I was like, "All right, I'll come in."
And then I ended up cutting his hair.
Oh, you were the guy?
Small,
Yeah.
small world, man. What are the
Nice.
chances of that happening?
It was so funny.
Yeah, because normally you're booked for like 3 weeks.
True. Yeah, I just had like a open spot. I think somebody canceled on me, and I'm like, hey, I'll take a walk in. But funny story though. So that which would have been our second season when you were running it,
Yeah.
you actually had to disqualify our team,
Yeah.
which makes it even.
Right.
Which when he came into the barbershop, man, to get his haircut, I'm
Right.
like, oh, this is payback.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
He had
That's
to
what he said. I was
disqualify our
like, oh,
team,
yeah.
man. I'm like, what kind of haircut do you want today? Doesn't matter. You're getting what I want today.
Yep. And I'm not using the good clippers.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
That's
Oh
funny.
man, yeah. You're like a young Adam Silver, man.
Yeah.
The way you're.
In the,
Man,
yeah.
it was so funny because you were talking about that, just disqualifying you guys, and I'm like, man, I don't remember. Like, I remember disqualifying you guys, but like, I don't remember your team really, because we had disqualified 2 teams. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm trying to remember the entire time. He's just going. I'm like, bro, like, what did I do? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah.
So it's so funny,
But I mean, we understood. Like, and I told
Yeah.
the guys that I play with that you're in a position where you got to make tough calls, right? The rules are the rules for a reason, and one of the guys on our team, we won't name him. He who shall not be named.
Right.
We're not gonna.
but he knows.
Just low key, he knows who he is. If he ever comes across this, he knows who he is.
Costed us the title, man.
Yeah. But no, man. So that was just pretty cool, like interaction that we ended up having that in that way. But it came around full circle, man. And obviously, man, we were glad that we got a chance to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Pretty cool cat.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate it.
let's get into it, man. You want to start off with the first
let's
question?
get into it. So, how'd you get involved with Calvary Church, or what was how'd you end up there?
Yeah, man. So it's crazy when you talk about how that kind of, not crazy, but just kind of, you talk about things just kind of falling in your lap and things just kind of happening. So during COVID, I was in college, and so I grew up in Kankakee. It's like an hour and 15 minutes south from here, and went to college. My mom moved up to Naperville, and so on breaks, I would just come back, and I would go to Calvary because I'm on break. It don't matter. And so COVID hits. I'm on, I think not spring break. It was one of the breaks. And they're like, just kidding. Don't come back. COVID. And I'm like, all right, fine. And then Calvary was one of the first churches that kind of opened up. When I was like, well, this is no brainer. I'm going to go in there. my mom was going there, and so she was actually part of like the worship team.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just really easy to get plugged in. I did my internship there to kind of graduate from college, and so I just kind of stuck around, and so it was not. I didn't really have to think about it. I was like, all right.
And is that your major in college, or what's your?
Yeah, so so I went to Moody Bible Institute, which is a a Bible college, and I always have to tell people because it's like, what's your major? And I tell them, and they're like, wait, what? So I graduated with evangelism and disciple making.
Oh, nice.
And so my goal wasn't to do like a sports director or anything like that, but just kind of fell in my lap. So, but you can say kind of study like ministry if you want. So
Right.
But yeah.
Man, that's pretty cool. And to hear you come from Kankakee,
Yeah.
you gotta tell me this, man. How do you learn, or how did you learn to manage all those personalities? Because there's a lot of personalities in the basketball, in our basketball league. Where I mean, some guys from the city, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Some guys from here in Aurora. But you being from Kankakee, you handle that like
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah. Honestly, man, I'm just like, for me, I understand where people are at, and especially being a church. Like my last thing is like I want you to be yourself. Like I don't want you to act any different around me, or like, I mean, there's a certain extent. I mean, hey guys, man, we're in the church. Like we gotta respect that. But at the end of the day, you gotta accept who they are. I'm not here to, hey, don't do that, man. If you swear, I'm not gonna yell at you. I'm not your father or mother, man. And so it's like, I get it, And I honestly, at my fault, I probably extend too much grace because I'm just like, hey, man, like you just gotta love on these people. I mean, I'm not gonna. It's who they are.
Yeah,
Gotta work with them.
No,
So,
yeah, and like I said, we also want to give you credit because you are doing a good job of running it. It's not easy to manage anybody for that matter,
Right.
but then you're also doing it in a space where, as men, we're naturally competitive. We got testosterone running through our veins. I mean,
Yep.
we don't. A lot of us don't have an outlet to release some of the anger, the frustration, maybe that you experience on a weekly basis, whether it be at work, family, whatever it is, right? And then on Sunday, you come together, man. You let it. That's where you get to let it out.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so just sometimes you forget you're in a church.
Yep.
No.
So F-bombs are flying,
Whoa,
refs
too
are getting
many
cussed
guys.
out. And
Yeah.
then, and there comes a point where, which we've seen multiple times and multiple occasions where the referees, they're human too.
Yeah.
Right? They understand they're in the church too, but they get fed up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And occasionally, sometimes the refs got to snap back and let players know, like, hey, man, I'm still a man at the end of the day, and you got to respect me.
Right.
I missed a call. I may have missed a call. And still to this day, you want to know the funny part? I've never seen a referee reverse a call because somebody was complaining.
Right.
Never.
I'm like, come on, guys.
Never.
You know
It
this
doesn't
man.
matter the level you're at,
Yeah.
whether it's kindergarten or NBA. You've never seen an NBA like reverse a call because that player was right. and it was tripping me out.
No, they don't do that.
Right.
Yeah, they don't do that. So how'd you learn how to develop those skills? Is it something you had to work on, or is it just something that came naturally to you?
Man, it for me is like something really natural for me. Going in high school and in college and kind of doing like the ministry aspect of things, like I had to learn very quickly, man, just accept who they are and then understand perspective. I think perspective is everything, man. Somebody comes into the gym, I don't know what they're coming in with. I mean, they could, it's the worst day of their life and they just want to play basketball and emotions are high and all that and stuff. And so for me, it's just understanding, perspective, like where they could be coming from, and then just I'm not here to change you. I want to accept who you are. And so for me, it's like never a how can I persuade you or anything like that. It's just this is Malcolm, this is David, and this is where they're at. Cool. Like I ain't here to change you. I want to I'm gonna maybe offer a perspective. I want to understand maybe what you believe or why you say and just all that stuff. So
Make connections, man. I think making connections with people, right? So like, and kind of finding something in common, something that we all have in common, whether it's
Right.
basketball, any other sport, obviously, or your belief, or even just like a belief in a higher power, even.
Right.
As long as a person has that, sometimes you can just connect with them. You don't
Right.
have to,
Right.
and I think that's a misconception in this country as a whole, that just because you disagree with somebody
Yep.
means that you can't get along with them, and that's
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah.
Like you can have a different belief system, you can have a different thinking process, even,
Right.
and you can still get along with people and
Yeah.
still respect people.
absolutely.
And I like how you don't have a sense of putting your authority on somebody.
Right,
Because I
right.
think that's super important. You being the president of the league, I guess, to put it that way, you're not like, I'm Zach and you do what I say.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
more like how you said, like, I'm Zach, and I run this thing, but I'm going to hear what you got to say, and then we'll try to work it out.
Right.
And I think that goes a long way.
It does.
I've been tempted.
I'm sure.
It's been
I'm
funny.
sure.
Yeah. The first
I'm
time I
sure.
played, I was, not everybody knew who I was, and so I was playing in a game, and one of the players was just like, talking trash to me and stuff, and it's just funny because he didn't know who I was, and so and we had some other issues with this player, and so I sent out an email as I always do, and I was like, hey guys, blah blah blah, we can't have this, and then the next time we played them, nothing. I mean, he didn't apologize. I wasn't looking for an apology.
Yeah,
Just,
right, yeah.
I'm like, so it's
Yeah.
kind of funny, but
That
yeah.
is funny.
No,
That
that's
is
funny, man.
That is funny.
So so now let's dive into the question of kind of what you studied and stuff like that. So what's religion mean to you?
Yeah, man. It's that word religion is such an interesting word because it doesn't carry the same as it used to back then. You hear people say, "I'm a religious person." Typically, it has like a negative thing to it. Oh, he's religious, so stay away from him. But I mean, Christianity for me is everything. Scripture talks about when you accept Christ in your heart and you believe in Him, that you're a new creation. Essentially, what that means is that like your old ways are no longer, and now it's not even it's not a new page, it's not a new chapter, it's a whole new book.
Yeah.
And so for me to separate, my Christianity is to separate who I am. I am, like, you can't separate the two, and so it's more than just a lifestyle. It's more than just trying to quote unquote be a good person. That's what a lot of people think religion is and stuff. It's a way of life for me. It's the way I see the world. I see it. It's everything for me, and so that's what it means to me. It's everything.
Nice, man. That's deep, man, and I like how you broke down what religion used to mean versus what it means for you now
Right.
on a personal level.
Right.
What was your earliest, let's say, childhood memory of being involved in the church?
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to just the way I grew up, and I grew up in a Christian household. So both parents went to church. I have 3 older brothers and 1 younger sister, so there's 5 of us. Church every single Sunday, like as early as I can remember. And I remember getting in fights too when I was younger. I actually fought the pastor's kid.
Dang.
I was like, bro, I don't know what it was,
Oh,
man. I
man.
I
That's
vividly
funny.
remember him just decking him in the face. He started crying. I'm like, come on, dude, really crying? But
Oh man,
but-
Zach's really from the streets.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, don't let that kankakee,
Yeah.
don't let
Yeah,
him
yeah.
fool you, man.
Man,
Don't let
that's
him
why
fool
he's
you.
in the league like that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I
yeah.
got something for you. Don't
Uh-huh.
worry about
Don't
it.
tell me, don't tell me,
Yeah.
Oh,
but yeah,
man,
man,
it's funny,
I
man.
grew up in a Christian household, and that's something that I've always just known. Church Sunday, my mom was singing, so I got there early. So my brothers and I, we would go on the couches and we would just sleep an hour before everybody got there. I'm like, it's just part of life, and that's like the earliest is just.
Now,
childhood.
did your parents, like, did they, as you got older, as you and your siblings got older, did they give you guys an option to say, like, hey, now that you're old enough, you can make your own choice whether you want to continue going down this path,
Yeah.
or if you want to switch religions, or if you don't even want to study or believe at all, you can do that too? Or was it something that they were kind of like, no, we want this to be a something you carry with you for the rest of your life?
Yeah, so that conversation never outwardly happened with us. So my parents got divorced when I was in 2nd grade. So my brothers moved with my brother, or with my dad. The brother who's the closest to my age, he's 1 year older than me, and my younger sister, we went with my mom. And so my mom continued to go to church, so that was not a question. We went to church. My dad stopped going to church, and so he kind of left that open. It was never a conversation. It's just kind of how it happened. And because I went with my mom, I just continued to go to church, and it's so interesting when I look back at that time, because she wasn't forcing it on us. You got to believe this, you got to pray and all these things, and so a lot of the time she just kind of let us, we just went to church. That was it.
She kind of led by example, and then just was like,
Right, absolutely. And so I remember, in junior high, I never had a problem with believing in God. I always believed in God, but it was that's as far as that went.
Yeah.
But I remember it was crazy. Like once a month, I would make the point, "Hey God, I thank you for everything you do," and that was the extent of my relationship with Him. Just say once a month, thank you for everything, and I moved on. And then kind of moving into high school, again, same thing, church and stuff. But around this time, I kind of met my best friend who was a Christian as well, and he was a really strong Christian for a high school student. You know, you're like, oh man, this guy is for real. Like, and so I got, became best friends with him. We ran cross country together. And so I went to church with him. And so his influence on my life was huge. And so, and at that point, decided to go on a mission trip in Guatemala.
Nice.
And then just kind of continued to go and get involved more and took trips. And then, eventually I just decided, okay, this is something I want to definitely do and pursue. So
Dope, man. Dope.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was that moment in probably the Guatemala trip where you were like, yeah, this is.
Yeah, I think it plays a role in it. I wouldn't say it was like at this exact moment, this is what God spoke to me, or this
Right.
I felt that calling. You hear Christians kind of say that. It's been leading up to that for a while, and so, but yeah, that definitely did play a role into it.
Dope, man. Dope. Was there ever like a time where, or at least that you can remember, that where you even for a second questioned your religion?
Yeah, man. So it happens more than you think. Even going to Bible college, you're learning all these things, and you're just like, man, do I actually believe in this stuff, right? Like, or am I just kind of have convinced myself I believe it? And
Right.
I ask myself, I'm like, is this really real? Is God real? Honestly,
Right.
is it? And I don't know why, but I always tell myself this. I'm like, but man, you look at the beginning of mankind. We were always trying to worship something. When we grew up in a world of many gods, you got Zeus, you got Artemis, you got all these different gods, and so we were like created to worship something. And I'm like,
Right.
it's not by coincidence, that we instantly started creating these gods, because we're meant to submit to something. We're meant to worship something. And so for me, that's kind of like, all right, Zach, calm down, relax, man. Like, you good. So,
Right.
but there's never been a time where I really, really doubted God through a particular situation. And it's funny enough, because now where I'm going at with my faith is I'm kind of like studying apologetics, which is essentially just the defending of the faith. So you get a lot of philosophical questions, it's like, oh, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Oh, well, who created God, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, snap, chill, relax,
Right.
calm down, relax,
Right.
man. And so even with all that stuff I'm learning, I still doubt. And so it's just, I think, something that
It's natural.
yeah, it's natural. It's not a bad thing to doubt.
No,
So
And
Yeah, 'cause
then
if you-
with that doubt, is there a time where he's like, God's like, all right, here's your answer to your doubt? You ever get that?
no, man. So like, my doubting is quick, and then I'm over it.
Okay.
So it's like, it might be like it might hit me in a moment, where you see something bad on the news, and you're just like, man, God, like, man, do you exist? And
Right.
and I just remind myself, like, yeah, I'm like, all right, you're right, and I move on. And so I'm sure maybe that time will come, but it hasn't come yet, where I've had a season of just really doubting God. And like, so today's world, they say kind of deconstruction, or deconstructing the faith. People kind of get back to the books and the fundamentals, and they kind of, all right, what do I believe in? And so that's a very common thing in this generation now. So
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. I agree with that. What do you, being in the church, are you involved with any of the younger kids at all?
yeah, so when I started going to Calvary, I was pretty involved with the high school students there. I did like small groups with them. I was kind of like a mentor to some of the students, and even honestly before Calvary, I've always just been part of like the high school ministry growing up, and so I'm definitely part of with the kids. But now, kind of current day, I've kind of moved away from high school to young adults. So you're talking about 18 to 30 college students and kind of young professionals. So that's kind of where I'm probably best at. I love high school students. I can be goofy with them, but for me, I'm just like, man, let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
And not high school
yeah.
students can't, but it's like
Yeah.
They don't have enough life experience.
that. They're still in high school.
Yeah.
like, so, but yeah.
What have you learned from either that age group or the age group you're working with now that's missing, like that they're in search for?
I think high school students, even young adults or young professionals, are looking for people to be authentic, and that's kind of circles back to earlier what we were talking about. Our generation, I mean, you guys are probably I think a different generation, but either way, it's so easy as you get older to detect someone who's fake.
Oh yeah.
Like no, you're looking at me as like a project. Like
Yeah.
that's just you can tell right away. And so for me, it's like just be yourself. Like, and so I think our generation, is looking for that person just to accept who they are, be real with them, have good conversations, and there will be conversations where you need to kind of be like, hey, you can't, some real, strong conversations to have with them, but at the end of the day, they're just looking for someone who's going to accept them, who's going to hear out, what they got to say, and just give them guidance,
For sure.
So,
That makes sense. What? How old are you, by the way?
well, how old do you think I am?
Well, now that you said that, at first I
What
didn't.
were you thinking? What were you thinking?
Now I obviously know you got to be younger.
Yeah.
But at first I thought you were around our age just by the way
You carry
you
yourself.
carry yourself.
Right.
I would never so if I was gonna guess, probably be like 28, 29 before you said that.
Yeah.
But that's because of the way you
Right,
are.
yeah.
You don't seem like very
Yeah.
young.
No, I'm 25, so most people would think I'm older because it's the beard,
The
so.
beard,
Yeah,
the
the
beard.
I can't get rid of this, man. If I show you this,
Yeah,
I'm
no.
going back to 14, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I hear you, man.
I can't do that. Can't do that.
I hear
so,
you.
But yeah.
No, that does make sense though, man. That that maybe it is. Maybe they're looking for somebody just to hear them out, and then give them that advice. But well, what do you say, Cuzzo?
I think and not even just in the not even just in ministry or maybe in the church setting, but I think there are a lot of young children, young men and young women that maybe aren't getting that guidance from home, right? So church and ministry may be a way that they can do it,
Right.
and I think that I'm not a super big religious person. I'll be honest with you guys. And I've kind of had these conversations a little bit with you, Zach, at the shop, but I do believe that church, the community aspect of it is good. It's healthy for the youth, because maybe, like I said, they're not getting that guidance or mentorship at home, but they can get it from somebody like Zach or
Right.
somebody else, within their team or their system, their organization. And
Right.
I think that it has huge effects on the psyche of the youth, and that's really where that's really where the work needs to be done, in my opinion. Is you have to not necessarily teach them what to think, but teach them how to think, right? How to think for themselves, how to come to conclusions on their own, right? And you're using Christianity as a bridge almost, right? To say like, hey, this is a route maybe that I took. I'm not saying you have to take it, but I'm saying if you do walk down this path, hopefully you'll gain a better understanding of yourself.
Right.
You gain a better understanding of the world. You get a better understanding of everything that's going on around you. And in that process, you can have your own relationship with God or whatever religion you believe in.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's got to do it too. I mean, and that's
Yeah.
another thing too. It's like we talk about wanting to mentor and wanting to be an example, and we're not perfect.
Not
and
at all.
going back to authenticity,
Yeah.
we are not.
Absolutely.
Nobody sitting here is
Right.
going to sit here and pretend like we're floating above everybody else, because we're not.
Not at all.
We've made plenty of mistakes, and the kids can recognize that, because when you talk to them, when you're real with them, and you say to them like, "Hey, man, look, this is what I used to do."
Yeah.
I'm being
Right.
honest with you, but I can no longer operate in that space because it's not healthy for me.
So good, yeah.
It wasn't healthy for the people around me, and this is how I felt after it. I felt this. I felt guilt. I felt shame. Whatever it was, and just be real with them, and they can sense it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah,
how
that would be my
important?
answer.
How important? You can speak of the community of the church. How important is it, in your opinion, or the community aspect of the church? And I don't know if when you were wording this question, Cuzzo, if it meant community being like somebody who goes to church and kind of surrounds themselves in that community, or if somebody's like, I do believe in God, I am religious, but I just don't go to the church. I'm not like surrounding myself in that community. Is that important to you, or is it okay if you don't do it?
No, I mean, I think it's so crucial to be plugged into a church, to actively not just go to church, but to be part of it, and to it's you know, you it's funny because you hear people like Easter and Christmas. You get the Easter, and you get people who go to Christmas or church on Christmas, and that's the only 2 days they go to church.
And Ash Wednesday.
And Ash Wednesday, there you go. And that's great, and like that's awesome. But you gotta be going consistently, and the reason why for that is because we're not meant to do life alone. We're not.
Right.
One of the first things that God says that was not good in the Bible was for man to be alone.
Right.
And so we're created to have community. We're created to be in community. You hear the kind of like the Bible verse that says like iron sharpens iron, and that really is that. I mean, that's a biblical thing. I don't know if people actually realize that. Like they say that's a Bible verse right there.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that either.
that's a Bible verse, and so we're meant to be in community. Those who are like-minded, but those who are also aren't, because that's what creates that diversity. That's what creates that push to become better in the church, man. That's a place where you should see, you know, all nations, all tongues, all skin colors, because that's like the, you know, that's the community right there, man. And so I think it's so important for someone's spiritual walk too, not even spiritual walk, but just in general, man. Like, and you go to church, man, they can help you financially. Hopefully, you know, if you go to a church that's able to do that, like, and so it's part of who we are.
Yeah.
You know, you can't isolate yourself, man. All bad decisions are made when you're isolated.
That's true.
And
No,
so
that
it's
is-
like,
They say the idle mind is a devil's playground.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you even talk about conversations of like huge like moral failures in the church by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you say to somebody who has, let's say they're not in the community church, right? But let's say they read their Bible verses. The people around them, whether it's family, cousins, they also have that religious belief and stuff like that. Like that's their community, but then they say like, yeah, I don't go to church. Like I don't go on Sundays, or I just don't like that. It's just not something they do.
Right.
We're talking about me, fellas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's address the elephant in the room right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. This
Right.
guy right here.
Right. Yeah,
Man,
we put it on me. That's me.
I would ask him, in like, why do you think you go to church? Like, what do you
Right.
think the role is of the church?
Right.
Because often that, you know, they have a perspective of what the church is for them and how it can do it. And not to say this is you guys, but like a lot of people will go to church because they want to get something from the church.
Right.
And so if they feel like they have nothing to receive from the church, they don't go.
Right.
And I see all the time where people will contact the church. Hey, can you guys help us out here? What's your name? We don't know who you are, and
Right.
you know, nothing wrong with reaching out to your local church for help, but it's the idea, like, a lot of people think that the church is just there to help you out, and it is
Right.
to help you out, but at
Right.
the same time, you're also supposed to be part of that church and
Right.
helping them out,
Right.
investing in serving them and helping out.
It's a relationship.
Yeah,
It's gotta
it's a
go both
relationship,
ways.
absolutely. So, I would ask that person, you know, what's their role? You know, what do you think the church is? And then sometimes it's just helping that person understand the importance of church.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just don't know, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
and
true.
like you just teach them, hey, this is what this is. Oh, I get it now. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I can get behind that. All right, yeah, you're right. Let me kind of do it. And you know, everybody's on a different journey and different steps, and so it takes time. And
Right.
so I mean, if you're watching this and you want to get involved in church more, just start one step at a time. Go maybe once a month, twice a month, and then you slowly build up to it. Especially if church kind of scares you, right? You know, you're walking in, maybe you look different, maybe you got earrings, face tats, and you're just
Right.
like, and you live a life of people judging you because your appearance.
Right.
Slowly, you know, go into that and just kind of work your way into it. So
To kind of piggyback off of what you were mentioning a second ago, man, is that, you know, a lot of people may be intimidated when they first go to church, right? But some people have maybe just went through something very traumatic in their life, and maybe they've never went to church, or this is their first time trying to get comfort in dealing with something that's, you know, a part of life, like maybe losing a loved one, et cetera. And they may already be an anxious person, or they already may be dealing with anxiety. So to go to a big church like Calvary could be very intimidating for someone.
Right.
But, you know, and I know that you were going to ask a question as well that kind of ties into this, but
Right.
the idea that religious people, ironically, can sometimes be the most judgmental,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? How do you?
man, I think it's interesting. First, you know, I think the hardest thing that we can do as people is putting ourselves in a state of vulnerability,
Yeah.
and then allow people to walk into that.
Yeah.
And so if you're at any point kind of feeling that anxiety or in a very vulnerable state, I mean, I understand that is not a state in which is fun to be in, especially to have other people see you in that. And so, try to go to your local church, man. And this is for me, just speaking from as a Christian. I hope that they accept you. I hope they love on you. But at the same time, I think we have to understand is sometimes the church is made out of people. Like, we're all people.
Right.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, and so we're not perfect. And so, sadly, the truth is that there's a lot of judgmental people in the church. Like, there's judgmental people everywhere.
True.
Right.
And so, it's unfortunate. You should go to church and be able to not feel that, but the reality is it's still gonna be there. I think and so because of that nature of that, I think it's important to kind of make sure you're secure as a person who you are in times and stuff. And I think just try to understand that we are people and we're not trying to judge you. I will say that at times too, I think we kind of put it on ourselves, like, oh, they're judging me. I'm like, no, no one's no one's judging you.
You may think the worst in those moments.
Yeah. I think like they say, like, the scenario that you put in your mind, like 90% of the time it doesn't happen. And so I think, just kind of answer your question. We're people, and I just ask, you extend forgiveness and grace on that end. Most of the time, I like to think that we aren't judging. If you appear differently, it's gonna be noticed. I mean, there's no way around that, right?
Right.
And so it's like, you got face tats, you got gauges in your ear and stuff like that. It's different from people, and it's not nothing bad about that. It's just you gotta recognize too. If you're walking in differently.
Yeah, you're just gonna be looked at.
You're gonna be looked at. You're gonna be seen. Doesn't mean they're judging you.
Right.
Just all right.
They're gonna be, here's a new pastor walking in with
Right,
face
yeah.
tats. Right. Everybody's like, oh my God, I hope he didn't hear what I said in the parking lot.
Right.
Right.
So the next question, Cuzzo, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on it. Do you believe in the separation of church and state? If so, why or why not? So elaborate.
Yeah, and what I really meant by that is obviously, politics play a huge role in this country. And religion is something that is used to sway people one way or the other, right? And I'm neither for one side or the other. I try to remain as neutral as possible. Look at the evidence that's presented in front of me, and then make a sound, conscious decision from that point, right? But the history of this country has been to use religion, to use Christianity, and whether it be in education, whether it be in the workplace. I mean, I know that it was when we were going to school that they removed like the prayers or anything like that from school.
Yeah, from the public school.
Yeah, from the public school
Yeah, I
system.
remember that.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's how old we are, Zach.
Dang, man.
Yeah, for those of you guys at public school, you guys can't pray no more.
No.
And it was crazy when that happened. Actually,
That was because there was a big uproar. A lot of people felt like that in this country, and I understand why they did it, right? Because it left out a lot of other religions. It left out a lot of other beliefs. I'm not saying the idea, the concept was wrong, but it wasn't inclusive enough, right? But yeah, if you could just elaborate on that.
Yeah, so that's such an interesting conversation, and I think one thing that we need to ask ourselves is, what is the role of the church, and then what is the role of the government? And I think there are some distinct roles that we have, but once you kind of figure out what that is, the church is meant to share the gospel of Jesus, share the good news, and preach and help people in their walk. The government is meant to govern different things. And so once we recognize those roles, we also have to recognize that the church is created by God.
Yeah.
At the same time, the government was created by God. And so now it's no longer us against them, but it's a question of how do we work together. We know that God is a God of order. So if God created something, therefore it must work together to keep that unity. And so now it's how do we work together? And there's different roles. If you elevate one side, if you elevate the church, there's going to be areas of the church that cannot be done well because you need the government. Vice versa. Elevate the government, there's areas of the church that you can't do well because you removed it. And we see in today's culture that we have elevated the government and have continued to push away the church. And now we live in a society where everything is questioned, everything has gone crazy.
Yeah.
You know, there's no truth no more. Truth is what you make it to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait, hold up. You're literally defining reality.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody lives in their own reality. And now we're questioning, you know, even just like political things, like what is a man? What is a woman? I mean, very fundamental questions that we're asking ourselves that we should already know the answer to.
Right.
You know, it's like, and I think a lot of people are recognizing, like, hey, I think we've gone a little too far out now. Like,
Yeah.
because it's like, this is crazy what's going on. And honestly, I would even argue that, you know, removing prayer from the public school was a huge role into now where we're at. You no longer, you know, you can't, like, you know, it's like if you disagree
Just
with
cause
me,
and effect, right?
Yeah, it's a cause and effect. You know, if you disagree with me now, it's, oh, you're attacking me.
Right,
We'll relax.
right,
Dude,
right.
whoa, relax.
Yeah, it wasn't like that before when we were
yeah.
growing up. Like, you know, just different.
Well, it almost seems like too, like society as a whole, anxiety is a real thing. And I think, you know, we live in the age of information, and we've briefly discussed this on here before, but we live in the age of information. Too much information can actually be a bad thing.
Yeah.
And because we have access to all this information, to all this science, we're now questioning everything.
Right.
Right. And I mean, and you said this earlier too. I mean, we should question. Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with questioning.
Absolutely right.
But to question and then say, okay, you know what? We've been doing things this way for a little while. Yes, we're always meant to evolve. We're always meant to change. We're always meant to grow. But we don't need to go completely 180 to the other side and just dismiss everything we've done and how we've been doing things for the last 1,000 years, you know, simply because we have new age science. Now, take the information that we have available to us at the time, of course, make the adjustments, but like I said, don't do a full 180 man and run to the other side.
No, the fundamentals never change. Like that, I think that's what's causing the biggest issue is the fundamentals for people. There is none anymore. They're getting, they don't know what it is anymore. So I think that's where we're getting lost, especially the younger kids. I mean, I don't know, you may see it a lot more than we do.
Oh yeah,
but maybe you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell kids, and I think and the elephant in the room is really the huge LGBT community. You know, we see a lot of people that are entering the church that, you know, are part of that community or have a lot of questions about that. You know, I'm a guy. I was born and I like guys. Like, how do I do that?
Right.
You know, and so that conversation would have never happened in the 60s. Never.
Never.
No.
And if it did, it was in private conversation, never spoken of it, because culturally just was not allowed. Like, you were looked down upon, you know. You even watch movies like in the 80s, man, they say words and they make jokes. You're like, cancel culture right now, but you can't cancel someone who made the movie.
Comedians, even?
Right.
I mean, comedians could, I mean, you can't listen to like Eddie Murphy's Delirious now. You mean you can listen to it, right? But like, you a person who may get easily offended will eat that thing up.
Right.
Or Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, that's true. It's crazy. So like this generation has really shifted and has forced the church to do things differently and to catch up. They say the church is always about 10 years behind what culture is at right now. We should have been we should be the experts now on this topic, but we're not. We're trying to catch up. And so we're seeing so many people have questions, and they're great questions, they're good questions. But unfortunately, the church at times and I mean the church in general, not just is like, we're behind. We gotta catch up. And it's everywhere now.
Yeah, I would say you guys are doing a great job though, because when I look at just the basketball league, just taking that and the people who are working it and the type of people you have, they're like young, it's diverse, but like everybody's welcoming and it's like I was like, man, it's different here. Whereas like a normal you know, like a Catholic church, because I'm Catholic.
Okay.
They're old school. Stuff just don't change. You got to go all the way to the motherland to get a change. You can't just make a change here. So I'm like, so when I see them, I'm like, man, they got a basketball league. They let people in. You know. So how have you guys been able to? Even though you're saying you're behind, how have you guys been able to make those changes?
I think we need to recognize is two things. It's how do we stay current but not be part of the world. And so it forces us to change a lot of ways we do stuff. And so it's okay, we can have basketball leagues and stuff. We can do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's like nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a point where that conversation is gonna need to be. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have to have that hard conversation. And as long as we as a church stick what Scripture teaches and hold true to that, then we should be good. But at any point we start compromising, that's when we get in iffy situations. A huge thing, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it, but the Methodist Church, there's a huge split right now. There's a part of the church where they go, okay, hey, we don't believe that the homosexuality is a sin or anything, and so the other side of it is like, no, that is still a sin. Like, we are holding to what Scripture says, and now there's a split. You see a section of a church that has now conformed to culture, and conformed to this idea, and you see the other side that has stuck and stayed rooted in Scripture. And so when we talk about culture today, as long as we're not conforming to culture that compromises our beliefs in Scripture and what we believe in Scripture, then it should be all right. But at that point, when it starts crossing lines, now that conversation you're gonna need to have. So
Wow, yeah, and that's a big one, man. I mean, that's obviously something in this country that has always been an issue. It's like church versus the LGBT community, and rather than looking at it like kind of like how you're saying, like both parties need one another in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And it's, I mean, yeah, that's, man, I did not know that about the Methodist Church, but I mean, I guess it's not that surprising either.
It's yeah. When I was in college, I was part of this ministry we had called Free Prayer, which is kind of funny because prayer's always been free. Right? But hey, you put that word free, people come and they say, "What's free?"
Yeah, right.
And so I was part of this ministry called Free Prayer, and we would go to different bars throughout the city from like 11 p.m. to like 2 a.m. And I went to Boys Town, which is like the biggest like gay community in the city. So I'm there at 1 a.m. holding a sign, Free Prayer.
Oh man,
you get two different type of people. The one who just screaming at you, "What are you doing here?" Like blah blah blah. I had people just record me, make fun of me. But then you get the other side of things is, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" And then you go, "Hey, we're just want to pray for you guys. We're not here to pray the gay out of you. Like, we just want to love on you. We want to pray for you. We want to, just join where you're at right now and work with you. And you're no different from somebody who's, in suburbs. We got needs and stuff. And so, that was an interesting.
Man, I wish you would have recorded that.
Now, you want to know what's interesting about that experience, too, is you mentioned how some people were recording you and making fun of you, right? Now, here's where the hypocrisy comes in, or here's where the double standard comes in, is that the same people in those community don't want you to judge them, or don't want you to make fun of them, or don't want you to look down upon them. But in that moment, before they even met you, before they even gave you a chance or an opportunity to speak on why you're even there in the first place, they did exactly what they don't want done to them. Right. And which is ironic, but it's also part of the human experience, right? It just goes to show that nobody's better than anybody.
Nobody.
And we're all the same.
Right.
And, just because, and I will say this, and I think that, comedians like Dave Chappelle, I mean, Dave Chappelle is a comedian, but he's also, to me, he's bigger than that.
Yeah.
The things that he talks about, the things that he discusses in his comedy shows.
Right.
He's dropping gems. He's forcing people to have tough conversations, right?
Yeah.
And with that being said, he makes a very good point about the LGBT community. And this isn't a knock about anybody in the LGBT community, but it's like, hey, we got to meet each other halfway.
Yeah.
We have to. That's the only way this is going to work. So everybody, if we can just let our guards down for a second, be vulnerable.
Put the guns down.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
chill.
We can all coexist together, know? So.
Right.
Absolutely.
But.
Speaking of scripture, what's your favorite Bible verse?
Yeah, man. Here it is, ready?
Right,
Here it is.
Let's hear it, man.
It
Bars.
Here comes the comments. I don't got a favorite verse.
Oh, wow.
That's a shocker, bro. I'll be honest. I didn't expect that answer.
No, I don't have a favorite verse. I don't know. I don't have a favorite one. I have like maybe favorite books or favorite ideas that come from Scripture. I kind of shared the one I'm kind of focusing on right now. It's in Colossians 3:2. It talks about, set your things above and not on earthly things. It's the idea of focusing on the kingdom of God and Scripture and stuff. And for me, that's something that has been just that's allowed me to change so much. When you look at things with a like a kingdom perspective, it really helps you in the moment. And so, for example, when you see someone maybe who wronged you at the time, right?
Right.
They just did you dirty, and you look at it like an earthly kingdom perspective. It's kind of like what we said earlier. You don't know where he's coming from. Maybe the greatest thing you can do right now is show them love,
Right.
and understanding that one act of love can
Yeah.
change this person's life forever. Now that has an eternal effect. You don't know what that moment
Ripple
can change.
effect.
Yeah, you
Right.
don't know, and so having an earthly kingdom allows you to just recognize it and be in the moment and see the potential of what can happen. You know, you might want to react in a negative way, but hey, this is you have an opportunity to change this dude's life forever.
Right.
So that's kind of like what I've been kind of focusing on. So I was gonna.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I was gonna say John 3:16.
Right,
you know?
I like
Right,
that.
yeah, that was-
Yeah. What does it say?
What's that? Let me
For
check my
God,
tattoo real
yeah,
quick. Yeah.
Anytime I hear 316, I just start thinking of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know?
That's
I hear
it.
glass breaking and
Yo.
beers getting chugged. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah.
That I like that, man, because when you talk about that, we had that experience with Jay.
We did.
You know, in our last episode, he passed away in a car accident. So, and we talked about how he did that for us, and the impact he had, and it's if it's in the Bible, it's crazy because it's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And the Bible has a lot of knowledge in it, and it's when you actually look at it, it does translate to real life.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's crazy. It's nuts.
People don't realize a lot of the things that we fight for as a society is found in scripture. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like people don't like even sayings or ideas like, you know where that come from? So that's Bible, that's scripture right there. You know?
Scripture.
Oh,
That's
snap,
true.
for real? Okay, yep. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no. And then so all three of us have dealt with cancer in some way, shape, or form. Malcolm, myself, he mentioned you've experienced cancer in some way. How has that affected your faith, if it did at all, during that period of time? And what did you take kind of from the experience?
Yeah, so it was crazy. So, I should really know the date, right? Something this big. So I was diagnosed with cancer. What did we? 23. So 22 in January. Probably late January. I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and it was crazy because you get that phone call. Hey, you have cancer. Everything afterwards is blurry. You ain't gonna remember. You just hear that C word. You're like, oh my gosh. And so the doctor, told me, hey, you got cancer and stuff. And he goes, you got any questions? I'm like, nope, man. Cause like,
Your
who thinks
brain
about
is
that,
fried.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
your brain is fried.
So
in
I was like, all right, thanks, appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. Hung up, and I was in my room, actually. I was going to clean it. And didn't get cleaned that day.
Yeah, it didn't.
And so I was just like, it's a weird feeling to be told you have cancer. The first thing, you just want to cry.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that C word, man, that C word has so much power, man. No one wants to hear it. No one wants to think about it.
Right.
So when you hear it, it's like,
Levels.
and so the doctor told me I had cancer and everything, and started crying. I was weeping, and I'm not someone who cries. Like I don't can't remember the last time I cried, and I was just weeping, man. I was just like, because it's scary. You don't know what the future is gonna look like for you. So I told my mom and stuff, and she's crying and stuff. And then after I started to stop crying. I went to prayer, and I was like, Lord, man, like I know that this is not what you intended, and I understand that. And I understand that right now, as I am crying and I'm in pain, so are you. And I recognized that, and I said, God, I am not going to curse you. I'm not going to point the finger. I'm not going to blame you, because this is not your fault.
Right.
A lot of people, when they go through hard, traumas like that, they want to point their finger at God. It's not God.
Yeah.
And so I told her, I was like, I am not mad at you. And it was actually a Tuesday. That day I went to worship service, and we prayed and stuff. And it was definitely a powerful worship, time for me. I think we were singing like how great are you, and I was just singing that, and I truly believed that. I was like, God, you're good and stuff. And it was a very weird couple weeks, just because you talk to people, they got no idea what you just got told.
Yeah.
And so once I realized the type of cancer I had, if you're a guy and you want any type of cancer, you want the one I had, because it's like a 98% recovery rate.
Oh,
It's
man.
so
That's
high.
great.
Yeah.
And that like took a burden off me. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
yo, I ain't gonna die.
I'm
I'm chill.
alright.
Just
Right.
get some surgery.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm solid. I'm
Right.
good.
Right.
My friend, he found out he had that cancer at stage 4, still 90% recovery rate.
Wow.
So it was like, all right, surgery, I'm good. And
Yeah.
so once I kind of realized what it was, and it wasn't really, I shouldn't be fearful of it.
Right.
I actually told my mom, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Walgreens, and the lady's gonna ask me, how are you doing? I'm gonna say, I just found out I got cancer.
Right.
Just you know,
Right.
she like, wait, what?
Right.
Just but
yeah. Throw her a curveball.
right.
Yeah.
She's
First
like, oh
thing,
my
yeah.
gosh,
Oh, yeah. Oh
right?
my
A
God.
little oversharing there.
Yeah.
But that time, and it was amazing. You know, in 2 Timothy, Paul tells Timothy, hey, I want you to go to this place, and I want you to share the Jesus with the people and share the gospel. And he says, I'm entrusting you with this responsibility. And for me, that hit me because it's okay. God is entrusting me with this responsibility of healing that he's about to give me. I'm going to have a testimony of healing and what God has done for me. It is my job now to share that with people and tell people about that.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, it was kind of weird. It was just like, wow, I am honored to have this type of story now. Like, this is amazing. I have this story to tell people, and I will always have it, and no one can remove that from me. And so for me, again, having that, kingdom perspective, it's like, now I can tell people about this. And so you tell people, and they're like, man, this is, I needed to hear that and stuff. And it's like, thanks, Lord. Like, it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this testimony. And so, but yeah.
Man, yeah, that's nuts, man.
deep, man.
That's definitely a ride that you probably went on
Yeah.
for a while.
So,
Because how long was it until you found out that it was like 98%?
so I was diagnosed with it, and then, let's see, that was like a Tuesday. That next Wednesday, I got surgery, and then I was good.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah,
oh,
it
so
was
like
quick.
But it was like a week of like,
just
dealing
kind of
with
going with it. I remember, man, I was like, all right, man. They put me under. I'm like, I ain't gonna fall asleep. Just out.
I ain't
Yeah.
gonna fall
And I
asleep.
wait,
Everybody
bro,
says
I'm
that
telling
when
you, man. Like,
Fighting off that anesthesia.
Yeah.
you're right. The movies are accurate, man. When you wake up and everything's blurry, you see
Yeah.
people walking by. That was really my life. I was like, I'm like fighting. I'm like, nah, man, this ain't gonna get. I'm open my eyes. I'm like, out. I'm like, it was crazy, but yeah.
Oh man.
Well, we're
Nah.
glad you're still here, man.
Yeah,
yeah,
we're
I'm
glad.
good. I'm
Absolutely
good.
glad
You made it.
recovered, man. You're
Yeah,
back to
thanks.
100%.
Yeah.
Because, like he said, we've all dealt with it. He's dealt with it with his grandfather.
Yeah.
I've dealt with it with my mom. And, like you said, when you hear that word, man, it's like somebody punches you in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
just level you. you know,
Right. It'll love
Right.
you. Yep.
and level your loved ones. But, I wanted to get your opinion on this because I think my perspective on anybody who's dealing with it or anybody that's going through it now has changed since I've had a personal experience with it. And one of the things that I thought about, because like with my mom, she's a very positive person,
Right.
Now, I mean, I'm really proud of her for how much she's grown
Right.
just in the last 2 years. I mean, I want to give her more credit than that, but specifically in this time frame that she's been dealing with what she's dealing with. Because even in those moments where it was tough and we would go to the doctor's office sometimes and like I said, it felt like you got punched in the stomach, she still is to this day is like, no, cancer's got me. I don't have cancer.
Right.
And it's a belief thing too.
Right.
And I believe that what a person believes and what they think shapes their reality.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that I guess what I should be saying is that if you continue to have your faith in whatever higher power that is, and you
Right.
hold on to that, and you hold on to the people that are around you and your loved ones, and you grab onto that, you have probably a 99% chance,
Yeah.
of being cured, of getting out of that situation. So our hearts go out to anybody that's dealing with it right
For
now,
sure.
friends
Absolutely.
or family,
Yep.
or a loved one,
Mhm.
significant other. We feel for you, and we know what it's like.
Definitely.
And I'll say this too, because I think in the moment when I found out, my initial reaction was to feel pity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's the last thing anybody who's dealing with that wants
Needs,
and
right.
or needs
Right.
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 in that moment. So if you are somebody that has somebody that that's going through it, treat them the same way
The same way.
that you treated them before.
Right.
Yeah.
If you
Absolutely.
clowned them, if you cracked jokes with them, if you know, whatever it was, make sure you continue doing that, because you have no idea what that's doing for that person.
Yeah, no,
You know, it
definitely.
reminds that person that I'm still me,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely.
because it and I had to catch myself. I'll be honest, man. There's been a couple of times where I've been in, whether it be in a doctor's office or I've just been with my mom,
Right.
and it hits me, right? I start thinking about her mortality. I start thinking about my mortality. I start thinking about the fact that I don't have kids yet, but if something were to happen to her, like, she won't get to have that relationship with
Right.
the future grandchildren. I start thinking about all that, right?
Yeah,
and
there's
then
a lot
I
to
got
think
to
about.
snap myself out of it. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
Hold up.
No,
She's
yeah,
here.
that's true.
Enjoy her.
Right.
Enjoy her while she's here. Don't
Right.
think. Don't
Yeah.
run down the street. You know, kind of like what you said. 90% of the stuff that you think about that's negative that's gonna happen doesn't even happen.
Right.
So stop right there. Kind of check yourself. Get back in your body. Get back in the moment. Stay present. Enjoy your loved ones while they're here.
Yeah.
Because you know we just never know, man. You just never know.
So we made it to the end. We're real quick.
It was quick.
We might have to do a part 2.
I was gonna say, man.
So you-
I thought of 17 more
Right.
questions.
Right. So you
during
got.
the process of
So we
this
got to
interview.
ask you the 2 questions from the Always Vibing podcast for you. Okay. It's a 2-question,
All right, let's
2-part.
do it.
You got probably a good maybe minute and a half.
All right, let's roll.
When you
with
look back at this past year or months, did you meet your goals, and how? And if you didn't, why not? The second part is, what is your purpose? Are you following it? And if not, what's stopping you?
Have I made my goals, man? I'm gonna be honest with you, probably not, man. I think it's a work in progress, but it's not where I wanted to be at. But that's okay. You ain't gonna hit it overnight. It's a progress, so you got to do it and keep working with it. So I have like eternal, goals. I want to be kind of like this person. We think of the person that we want them to invest in our lives, or the person we want to be. We'll start being that person.
Right.
Start working to it. And so that's kind of I will say with that. And then what was that second one?
The last one is, what is your purpose? Are you following it? If not, what's stopping you?
Man, my purpose at this point, man, is just to continue to follow God, glorify Him, tell people about Him, and never stop and never waver on it, and don't be ashamed of it. I mean, who cares what people think about at the end of the day?
Yeah.
You're you. I mean, that's just kind of how I operate too. So,
No, I
But
like
yeah.
that, man. I like
Respect.
that. And what's a question you have for our next guest?
oh man, what's the meaning of life?
That's
Oh,
a good
boy.
one. That's a good one.
That's a really good one.
Real short and sweet, but it packs a big
Yeah.
punch. I like that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to let them chew on that for
Yeah.
a second,
Yeah.
you know, because
And-
they may not be able to answer that one right away
Right.
unless they've already really given it some serious
Right.
thought. 'Cause-
right, right. And with that, hit him with the outro, Cuzzo.
All right. As always, man, thank you guys for tuning in to the Electives podcast. This will be episode.
We
we'll
won't put
figure
a-
it
we
out
won't
when,
put a- we
when,
won't put a
when
number
we
on
get
it.
there. But we want to give a big thank you, man, to Zach for coming through today. He came through for us last minute, man, and we can't thank him enough. The conversation that we had today, what we're hoping is that you guys can take something away from it. If there's any questions that you guys have about religion or about faith, maybe you can, go to your local church if you're not in the area, and hopefully somebody can help guide you, man, and help you on your journey of better understanding life. So with that being said, man, like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.